good afternoon, and welcome back to Airmen and Space Warfighters in Action, where our airmen and guardians and our Air and Space Force leaders share their unique insights. I'm your host, Orville Wright, President of your Air Force Association. And today I'm excited to kick off the new year with a great airman, a great air warrior, Brigadier General Jeremy "Kid" Sloane, commander of the 36th Wing at Guam Air Base. He's joining us today from Anderson, where it's 0600 tomorrow morning. So special thanks, Jeremy. And of course, we can only hold events like this with the generous support of our sponsors: Collins Aerospace, Elbit America, General Dynamics, General Aviation or GE Aviation, L3 Harris, Lockheed Martin, Oracle, Pratt & Whitney, the Pentagon Federal Credit Union, Raytheon, the Roosevelt Group, and SAIC. So a great thank you to all of our sponsors. Well, Jeremy, as the commander of the 36th Wing, you lead 5 groups and 17 squadrons, as you also oversee Pacific Command's Bomber Task Force and theater security packages, contingency response operations, and operations throughout the Indo-PACOM region. General Sloane is a 1992 Air Force Academy graduate and command pilot with more than 2,500 flying hours, primarily in the F-16, including 235 combat hours flying in Operations Northern Watch, Southern Watch, Joint Guard, and Allied Force. We'll get to questions later on our hour together, but for now, General Sloane, Kid, the stage is yours. And I'd also note that Jeremy brings some unique background. Not only was he a Thunderbird pilot, but he commanded our wing at Kunsan Air Base and was the Wolf. And for many of us, we recognize just how proven your leadership is in both those roles. So again, General Sloane, thank you.
Well, General Wright, let me start by thanking you. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for developing and facilitating these important discussions. And a big thanks to the Air Force Association and all of your sponsors that you mentioned, who don't just support series like Airmen and Space Warfighters in Action or Airmen in the Fight, but who enable the fight through partnerships with industry, developing and incorporating technology, and often drive the policy that make our airmen more effective. So again, thank you. And thanks to those of you who tuned in to take part in this series or this discussion, and for having an interest in what we're doing on the other side of the world out here in Guam, where America's Day began. I imagine many of you can relate when I say that since becoming a senior leader, I've often been surprised about the assignments that I've been given, but I've always just felt tremendously rewarded by the unique opportunities that they've provided. I wasn't expecting my previous assignment as Commandant of the Air War College, Air University, just must not have checked my student transcript. And I wasn't expecting the command opportunity out here in Guam, leading a wing that's been working joint basing issues and an Air Force global strike priority of transitioning from continuous bomber presence to the Bomber Task Force construct. I don't think I ever considered those issues to be in my wheelhouse. But as you know, these surprises along the way are what keep you interested and excited about the opportunities that are Air Force and excited about our leadership role and responsibility in national and global security. So I graduated from the Air Force Academy at the end of the Cold War and started flying F-16s, training to a previous peer-to-peer threat of Russia. Then spent 2 decades transitioning to wars in the Middle East, fighting global war on terror and battling violent extremism, where air superiority, air power, providing decisive effects, and pristine C2 and capabilities advantages, they were a given. And now I find myself in the middle of the Pacific, where, highlighted by the language of the 2018 National Security Strategy, the 36th Wing is at the forefront of the conversation about the return to great power competition with old adversaries like Russia or the new pacing threat of China. We're back to peer-to-peer conflict in contested environments with degraded comms. It's somewhat exciting and a little bit nostalgic to see things come full circle. So what's really flavored my perspective? Well, I spent nearly 20 years without dipping my toe into the Pacific. And then after discussing China's rise as a student at the Air War College in 2010 and taking my regional security studies trip to Southeast Asia, I was assigned to the Joint Operations Division PACOM at J33, the Joint Staff, watching Kim Jong-il give way to Kim Jong-un and supporting the State Department's rollout of the pivot to the Pacific. I followed that with 2 years as the Vice Commander at Luke Air Force Base, where I got to travel to Singapore and Taiwan, supporting our fighter training programs with both of those amazing countries. After that, as mentioned, I got stationed in the Pacific Theater as the Wolf, commanding the 8th Fighter Wing at Gunsan in Korea. And then most recently, I spent 3 years as the Commandant of the Air War College, where under General Cotton and General Hecker, we connected curriculums and programs across Air University to the 2018 NDS. We focused on the return to great power competition and peer and near peer competitors. While there, I also got the opportunity to visit China and feel the weight of the presence of the party in Beijing, and feel that weight shift as I move south towards Guangzhou and Hong Kong, and see that insidious shift that welcomed Western business, but still under communist control, just a little bit more subtle. I also got to go to India on my capstone trip and judge the NDS optimism of India's role in countering China in the region, balanced against their need to remain strategically autonomous. So my point with that history is that I'm very appreciative of those opportunities and how they opened my aperture as I stepped into this command in this region at this time. And really, as my perception as this theater was being shaped over the last decade, Russia and especially China were investing in new technologies and military integration, indelibly changing the way that we operate in this region. So the 36th Wing. The 36th Wing in Andersen Air Force Base, we've had a long history of projecting air power from Guam. And although Andersen has always had to face the tyranny of distance to support resupply and logistics, we have resourced, flew, and projected air power relatively uncontested and unthreatened for the better part of 7 decades. And as you know, recently, all of that has changed. So without getting classified, we sit within the range of many enemy missile threats. China is no longer operating inside the first island chain. They're operating in the second island chain and beyond. Integrated air defense systems, ballistic and cruise missiles, next-gen aircraft, and hypersonics provide capabilities that put our main operating bases at risk and present new challenges for the U.S. as we defend and operate it from bases like Andersen. So as my leadership team and I thought about how to fly, fight, and win at a time where the chief challenges to accelerate, change, or lose, while for General Wilsbach, we accurately posture in the Pacific Theater to provide peerless effects from cooperation to conflict, we decided to restate our mission, and we're retooling our airmen to take advantage of our unique forward geography, our regional partnerships, and our forward thinking in a newly contested environment at what I think is a pivotal time in history. And for the 36th Wing, that mission has really become to project air power, expand combat capability, and strengthen partnerships from the forward edge of the Indo-Pacific. And really for this discussion, I want to focus on 2 main things. One, what we're doing here right now to project air power by incorporating new capabilities and concepts in this contested environment. And 2, the importance of the word forward in our mission statement. And although I may not specifically state it, I'll pull these 2 threads throughout the conversation. All right, Geography 101. I don't want to insult anybody, but here's Guam. A long, long way from anything. I don't know if anyone appreciates how remote it is until you leave Seattle, San Fran, or LA, fly 4 hours just to get to Hawaii, then fly another 7 or 8 hours to get to Guam, only to land and realize that you're still 3 to 6 hours from the Philippines, Australia, Singapore, Japan, Korea, and China. And anything nearby is even more remote and more austere. So if this is the United States' only truly sovereign option in this entire region, Andersen becomes a big option to support operational plans and becomes an even bigger target. Major Scott Adamson and Axel Praisewater, who are visiting analysts at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, stated that thought pretty simply. And they say, China and Russia can increasingly hold overseas U.S. bases at risk. To adapt, the Air Force must evolve from its dependence on well-established airfields or risk yielding an operational edge. Beijing's asymmetric arsenal includes thousands of ballistic and cruise missiles capable of striking the first and second island chains in the Western Pacific. The Air Force is especially vulnerable to these threats because of its reliance on prepared airfields. While the service can overcome some disadvantage with long-range bombers, a war in which missiles knock out American air bases and prevent the ability to launch and recover short-range fighter jets is unlikely to end well. And PACAF has long realized how difficult it is to project power across multiple domains from multiple axes in its huge AOR. The austere and remote environments offered as options have senior planners worked through innovative adaptive basing, agile logistics, and flexible combat options. In 2017, the Air Force folded in ACE, or Agile Combat Employment, into its ConOps. The Air Force describes ACE really as utilizing a hub and spoke network of permanent, well-established hubs and more remote, austere spokes enabled by multi-capable airmen, pre-positioned equipment, and airlift to rapidly deploy, disperse, and maneuver combat capability throughout a theater. So paired with aircraft fueling, arming, and limited maintenance activities, ACE expands the number of bases from which air forces can generate combat sorties. And really, that just gives us multiple options, expands our access for power projection, and complicates, this is important, complicates the enemy's targeting problem. General Brown basically says that when done right, our air forces could pick up and move operations at any time. And he goes on to describe Agile Combat Employment as a key operating concept for how the Air Force will fight in a modern, contested environment. And he highlights agility, posture, protection, and JADC2 as the key capabilities that enable ACE. So to talk quickly about how the 36th Wing and Team Anderson are getting after advancing ACE, I'd like to highlight two of our four priorities: operationalizing the base and designing and developing multi-capable airmen. First, operationalizing the base. Within this priority, we nest all of the efforts that optimize and prepare Team Anderson really to support current and future operations. And this could range from designing and executing a new support contract for vehicle maintenance to rewriting our joint memorandum of agreement with Navy and Marine Corps to gain fiscal control and operational flexibility over supply, lodging, services, maintenance, etc. It includes upgrading and improving comms infrastructure to enable future exercises or operational concepts, anything from ACMI to data link to new fiber networks. It includes facilitating or optimizing the relocation of 5,000 3rd MEF Marines to support CV-22 aviation training from our North Ramp instead of Japan. And more relevant to the ACE conversation, this priority includes operationalizing ACE, especially through innovation and integrating our exercises and connecting them to Air Force operational concepts. And we have two major exercises that provide that ability to operationalize multiple PACAF and Air Force concepts out here, and they're Valiant Shield and COPE North. Every other year, we host Valiant Shield in the early fall at Anderson, which is a high-end joint warfighting exercise designed to develop our joint interoperability. So last September, scaled down by nearly 50% due to COVID, Anderson hosted 37 aircraft, including B-1s, KC-135s, KC-10s, F-16s, F-22s, EC-130s, C-130Js, AWACS, and MQ-4s. 1,100 joint participations at Anderson Air Force Base executed 222 sorties, flying nearly 700 hours. And at the time of execution, it was the largest joint exercise conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic. And with the USS Ronald Reagan and Carrier Strike Group 5 included, the exercise totaled over 11,000 people, 10 ships, and 100 aircraft. COPE North is conducted at Anderson every year in late winter and early spring. It's a trilateral exercise designed to develop the interoperability between the USAF, JASDF, and Royal Australian Air Force. We host 2,500 participants and nearly 100 aircraft, and we're getting ready to host that in the coming next 2 weeks. So this past year, during Valiant Shield, we really started getting after three of PACAF's ACE tenets, including agility, posture, and JADC2. And PACAF's ACE concept describes agility really as in a peer conflict as requiring flexibility and challenging the traditional operating norms developed within a predominantly permissive environment. This may mean operating from an austere location, receiving fuel in an unconventional or expeditionary manner, or rearming in a different airframe. And during Valiant Shield 20, we executed 3 F-22 integrated combat terms on Andersen Air Force Base North Ramp, which included the first ever 5th gen refueling and first hot refueling from a C-130J aerial bulk fuel delivery system, or ABFIDS, along with the first ever hot-to-hot refueling, allowing expedited turns. And for those of you who haven't really seen ABFIDS, what it is, it's a C-130 or like aircraft with a one or two 3,000 gallon fuel bladders mounted in the fuselage, and a pump system that's compatible and adaptable to refuel multiple types of airframes. This system gave full combat offloads during Valiant Shield simultaneously to 2 F-22s at 150 gallons per minute to each aircraft. And the command is very excited about the expeditionary capability and flexibility this provides in theater. In November, we followed those Valiant Shield ACE successes with dynamic force employment execution of 2 F-22s executing hub and spoke operations to Palau, deploying a multi-capable airman team to complete integrated combat turns, and again, refuel with another C-130J ABFIDS. But I think that one of the most challenging ACE operations is coming up here in February during Cope North. F-35s and F-16s will conduct spoke operations by landing, refueling, replanning, and launching at Andersen's Northwest Field. And for those of you who haven't been here, Northwest Field is a truly austere airfield carved out of the jungle on the northwest side of our base. Just under 8,000 feet with some ramp space, taxiways, and some hangar capacity, Northwest Field is surrounded by harsh jungle. It has minimal markings, minimal lighting, and no permanent aircraft or airfield control. Thus far, only C-130s and helo ops have been conducted on that airfield. Our contingency response group will practice opening the airfield, controlling the airspace, clearing landing ops, and supporting combat turns of F-35s and F-16s using multi-capable airmen. And we've installed a temporary mobile aircraft arresting system and are quick manufacturing some distance remaining markers. So my hat's really off to the OGs from Masawa and Nielsen, who are buying a lot of risk to test their pots in this concept in a no-kidding remote environment, which PACAF hopes will unlock more capabilities throughout the region and theater. So ACE posture, that's more about how we set the theater, especially in a contested environment. Proper setting of the theater is characterized by only needing a runway, a ramp, a fuel source, munitions, food, and some multi-capable airmen to operate from anywhere in theater. And the 36th Wing is setting the theater significantly throughout the Marianas Island chain. We are partnering with, utilizing, and operationalizing runway and airfield support capabilities in places like Northwest Field, as mentioned, Palau, Tinian, and Saipan. COVID kept us out of Tinian and Saipan during Valiant Shield, but multi-capable airman teams conducted airfield damage repair on Northwest Field, and we continue to build the relationships that will allow future operations and unlock spokes across the region, including training multi-capable airmen with familiarizations and certifications in refueling ops, weapons and munitions loading, comms, engineering, and cargo prep. And for the past 3 months, supporting dynamic force employments to Palau, we've conducted airfield damage repair on Koror International Airfield and cleared and operated a new airfield on the remote Palawan island of Anguar with a population of only 130. Next month during Cope North, 10 contingency response group airmen, 2 CE airmen, 3 OSI agents, and 3 medics are going to Palau to conduct subject matter expertise exchanges, establish ADVON for Cope North, establish our international observers program for 4 countries observing Cope North operations, and enable Agile hub and spoke operations for late exercise F-35 combat turns into Koror International. Additionally, we're going to have 8 Red Horse Airmen deploying to Palau to repair a 10x10 crater using local backfill and a FODMAT on Anguar, and again in that remote 130 person island. These are not easy negotiations for deployments in and out of regions that are extremely, right now, extremely wary of travel and visitors during the pandemic. So really setting the theater requires continuous diplomatic engagement. I'm not kidding when I say things like Operation Christmas Drop pay big dividends in supporting these regional partnerships. JADC2 for ACE translates decisions into action across all domains in concert with all of our mission partners. It really must be the opposite of what we've grown used to in a permissive environment. Mission type orders with the commander's intent generated well ahead of need are imperative. They'll need to be enabled by integrating C2 nodes within the theater control communication system that establish multiple and redundant comms. Although during Valiant Shield this past year, we didn't include really executing mission type orders, we had significant plans to integrate ABMS into the exercise. ABMS, or the Advanced Battle Management System, is an Air Force solution for joint all-domain command and control. And ABMS enables our joint force to collect, analyze, and share information with decision makers and warfighters. ABMS can link current and future sensors, weapon systems, and command and control nodes to achieve desired effects through multiple domains. And during Valiant Shield, the Air Force intended to conduct ABMS on-ramp number 3. And on-ramp number 3 at Anderson involved launching the XQ-58 unmanned combat aerial vehicle with a payload that was going to provide a 5th generation bidirectional communications gateway and line of sight data link. The objective of that on-ramp was really to demonstrate capability to receive and transmit data to 5th gen fighters. The XQ-58 UCAVs, they're launched by a sled that's mounted on a mobile vehicle and a net that catches them at the end of their mission in a pre-programmed area. The plan was to sled launch at Northwest Field and catch them there as well. But the on-ramp number 3 demonstration was postponed due to COVID because we had travel limitations that hindered the movements of the C-17s, F-35s, KC-46, the UCAVs, and over 200 Air Force and contractor personnel and their equipment that were really required for effective execution. So we missed that opportunity. But it wasn't a JADC total loss. USAF executed one of the Army's solutions to JADC2 by launching a hot air balloon to link data and send that data to their austere remote command and control center here on the airfield. Although they didn't fuse that data into the vols and scenario, they linked that data to provide better threat awareness and sync air, sea, and land long-range fires through their HIMARS. Additionally, Lockheed tested the virtual Aegis weapon system, which is technology that uses virtualization to provide a portion of the Aegis combat system capability. During VS-20, the Lockheed Martin VAWS team operated alongside USARPAC's multi-domain task force to achieve a joint force common operating picture, and they integrated long-range fires. And so really, I think that this highlights that during Valiant Shield, a lot of our vendors and industry partners use the opportunity to showcase new capabilities or increase proliferation of existing capabilities. It's also an outstanding DoD opportunity to conduct development and operational testing of new or upgraded capabilities. Valiant Shield is one of a few exercises that afford the opportunity to do this scale of experimentation because of the size of the exercise. And it's joint, but it does not include allies and partners. So we have a better control over classified and proprietary information. So although ACE in the theater, Pacific Theater, primarily focuses on fighters, especially 5th generation fighters like F-22 and F-35s, the concept also envisions a more expeditionary bomber presence as well. And Global Strike is looking into how they can effectively integrate more forward using ACE concepts as well. Many of you know that last spring, we transitioned out of decades-old continuous bomber presence here at Anderson to more periodic bomber task force concept. However, so far, bomber task force deployments have been fairly frequent, so we really haven't been able to capture any significant lessons learned as we made that change. The theory behind the BTF, though, is to try to regain bomber readiness with fewer continuous deployments. And to complicate the targeting problem by operating from home or deploying to and operating within the theater, using multiple platforms that can provide deterrence and multiple strategic messaging and combat options by deploying and applying pressure at times and places of our choosing. And across the theater, we're also looking to incorporate multiple platforms into a more expeditionary ACE-like concept in support of larger scale operations. So I'd like to wrap up by focusing on our airmen in the fight, especially at the forward edge here in the Indo-Pacific. One of the key enabling concepts we're most exciting about is that of multi-capable airmen. I mentioned MCA throughout our advances in ACE, but the 36th Wing is truly excited about really fleshing out the multi-capable airman concept. PACAF has appointed the 36 wing, specifically the 36 Contingency Response Group led by Colonel Eric Schmidt, to take the lead in developing syllabi to help build MCA to support ACE in the theater. We're excited to take the lead for PACAF, but as a wing priority of designing and developing multi-capable airmen, MCA will be a big portion of how we incorporate all airmen into the fight. A lot of wings are doing great things with this concept, but true MCA is more than providing security force TTPs to AFSCs other than our defenders. That is not MCA. What we are building here is actual USAF accredited training and qualifications across multiple AFSCs that enable flexibility during operations, especially in contested environments. Two of our already established courses, Dragon Forge, which trains in-depth fieldcraft hostile and covers a wide range of security force operations, convoy, combat, self-aid, buddy care, etc., and ECAC, or Evade, Capture, and Conduct, are both Air Force accredited training that everyone will go through. And PACAF's MCA system is really designed as follows. Tier 1, which is currently all airmen, should get basic expeditionary skills, currently called Basic Airman Readiness and Basic Deployment Readiness. And it really is a mindset shift back to fight the base and reconstituting your main operating base. Tier 1 produces airmen to augment Boss I in support of integrated established air base or main operating bases. Tier 2, which in the future will be for all PACAF airmen, is advanced expeditionary skills. These are the individuals, 5 levels or higher, that will move forward to a forward operating base or hub. They'll be skilled in fieldcraft courses, evasion and conduct after capture, and be familiar with rapid damage repair. They're plug-and-play airmen that to support Boss I, C2, and familiar with mission generation in support of a forward operating base. And Tier 3, which in the future will be select PACAF airmen who will have advanced mission generation skills. These will be 7 levels or higher, expected to operate in small teams independently at a temporary contingency location to create an operational forward air refueling point. It will produce certified airmen able to execute Boss I, C2, mission generation in a semi-permissive or hostile environment for 12 to 72 hours without resupply or backfill. And we're excited because we're not just developing the syllabi, but we've got cross-functional teams of airmen looking at the optimal AFSCs to combine into min packages and the optimal skills required for those multi-capable airmen and teams to be successful in theater and across our Air Force. So that's a lot of the fun stuff that we're doing out here, but there's still so much more work we do daily to operationalize our base through things like getting Aegis ashore to Guam, or to cultivate regional and local partnerships by basing a Singapore Air Squadron at Anderson. But really, I think I should probably stop here and open it up to your questions. So thanks for listening. And General Wright, sir, back to you.
Well, thanks so much, sir. General Sloane has certainly given us in-depth, comprehensive insight into what not just Anderson Air Force Base is all about, but he's the quiver with all the arrows to me, pushing forces out in a defensive or counteroffensive role across a whole range of available runways, from obviously Australia to the Philippines, even New Guinea, and up through Japan and into Korea. So incredible story that you've told so well. So let me start with a couple of great reporters. I'll start with our own Brian Neverstein and then go to Stephen Trimble. So Brian, you first.
Yes, General, thank you for taking the time. I was hoping I could follow up on your last point about MCA. Obviously, this started out of PACAF and USAF. Can you talk about how you're integrating or working with other combatant commands on developing this? It was my understanding that the Expeditionary Center was doing a lot of the syllabus training. Can you talk about how you're working with other components on broader Air Force requirements and how you're addressing that within your theater?
Yeah, hey, Brian, I appreciate that. It's a really good question. And it kind of goes to the point where we're excited about the energy that's placed on this, the 36 wing, specifically the 36 CRG, because of PACAF's pinning the responsibility on us to really develop those airmen in response to PACAF. But you're absolutely right. That is a part of a larger program. And why we're really excited about it is because of what it's going to do to more airmen to be able to bring them in the fight. And the Expeditionary Center has long had the lead on what this means, but their ability to incorporate it into the syllabus, the syllabi that are really capable of unlocking the needs for the theater weren't met until until I think we started developing some of these things out here specific to the theater through the CRG. But absolutely, to your point, we are connected to multiple agencies, including the Expeditionary Center, on where those concepts started from and how we're going to integrate them more holistically to unlock more capabilities. This is going to work in ways that unlock the ACE concept here in PACAF, but when done right, we're going to unlock really the potential of more airmen. And from that standpoint, the Expeditionary Center is going to continue to take the lead on what that means for multiple expeditionary capability for airmen outside of this AOR, but also I think to the bigger Air Force need of being able to provide airmen a little bit more operational flexibility across a lot of different career fields and mission sets.
Well, thanks, sir. Go to Brian Everstein and then Mike Boera, General Boera after that. And so go ahead, Steve. Steve Trimble.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much. I had a question about air-base air defense for Guam, but also as you move to agile combat employment and as the threat expands from ballistic to maneuvering, hypersonic, and cruise missiles. I'm aware of what's going on at Ramstein with the Air Defense System Integration Lab. I was curious if there's anything like that going on in the Pacific, or if you're really taking your cues from Ramstein, and what your thoughts are about how you protect your bases as this threat sort of metastasizes.
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. One of the ways in which we concentrate on being able to protect our assets and protect our operations is what we talked about through ACE, by being able to disperse and provide multiple targeting options. But we still have significant bases that we're going to have to provide protection for. And one of the concepts that we're using out here, that you're using in Europe as well, as you know, is that Aegis Ashore concept. And so we've been really focused a lot on trying to bring that Aegis Ashore capability out here, and with our partners here at Joint Region Marianas, looking at the footprint and bringing an Aegis Ashore crew in here to look at the footprint across Guam to see where they would put radars and then shooters to support really a more 360-degree view of how we would protect ourselves from multiple threats. Along with our THAAD capability out here. The governor of Guam and the local leadership is really excited about those opportunities. So we continue to invest in that type of a capability. It may be a little ways away from bringing here, but that's one of the ways in which we're getting at protecting ourselves from those threats.
Well, thanks, sir. General Boera, and then Frank Wolf. And please identify yourself, and then again, Mike, then Frank.
All right, well, half a day there, kid Sloane. I'll say up front that one, I like the stuff on your wall behind you, decorating your office. And two, I thought I was busy when I was in your seat, but you are way more busy than I ever was. And I congratulate you doing this during the COVID challenge that you've been faced with on top of everything else. And before I forget, I would offer up, I think you've lived through some of the lessons learned with putting an austere airfield into play when we did a runway, a new runway in place at Spangdahlem and opened up Bitburg, but landed on the taxiway at Spangdahlem, which I think was a little bit more dangerous than Northwest Field actually may be when all is said and done. So, hey, a question for you, two actually, if you don't mind. During my time back there, we had put in almost a debt for 13th Air Force, the AOC, that had an ADSI feed for Noble Eagle type of scenarios, but may come in, could come into play on Joint All-Domain C2. I'm just curious if that kind of Joint All-Domain C2 initiative is still in play or it's been overcome by events in the years since I've been there. And then two, you touched big time on logistics. What are your logistics lessons learned, being kind of a hub for logistics out there with the tyranny of distance, jungle overtaking, stored equipment there? Just, you know, your perspective on logistics writ large since you've been in that seat. So thanks for that. Great seeing you. Over.
Hey, sir. Sir, obviously great to hear from you. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Bringing back the landing on the taxiway at Spangdahlem, that's no joke. But I realize now, you know, some of the tremendous training and risk that senior leaders have to provide when they're getting their folks ready to be able to take those risks. And again, my hat's off to the units that are coming in here and doing some of this stuff for the first time. There's plenty of opportunities to land on our field here. There's plenty of opportunities to land at Karor International, but those, you know, there's going to be, if we do this right, there's going to be a lot more austere locations, and to get used to that concept, the ability for them to operate on Northwest Field, I think, is going to provide a lot of bang for the buck to our concepts down the road. Sir, not a lot has changed here. I'm sure you were just as busy. The weather's just as good. But I will tell you that from the ADSI feed that really is supposed to enable some of our comms, we're be careful here a little bit, but we're still struggling with our ability to connect. One of the main integration things that we're going to really look at expanding, and we're doing this as often as we can when we bring in exercises, our ability to provide JADC2 and reinvest in infrastructure that includes our comm nodes and our walk. So we've got some significant work still to do there. And then back to your questions about logistics and some of the lessons learned, it kind of ties in to the last why we really haven't moved the ball. There's some goods and bads to joint basing, and you know we continue to struggle with some of our abilities to control our own destiny and resource and operationalize the base in the ways that we want to. So you know, for the past 10 years, we've struggled with the ability to get our priority into some of those things that would have enabled that concept that you're talking about. But you've been out here, sir, and you've seen you know firsthand how hard it is to supply and maintain things out here. Supply just from the tyranny of distance and our ability to bring things in is extremely challenging. That's exacerbated by COVID, and then to maintain things in a place where corrosion is just so fierce. It's one thing to see it at Kunsan. It's a concern at Kunsan. You get down to Kadena, it's a real concern. It's a real thing there. And when you get out here, corrosion can be the only thing. So it takes constant attention to be able to do that. And probably at the top of my logistics concern goes back to that joint basing. Our ability to do that without our own Blue Suit operationalized logistics readiness squadron that deals with vehicle maintenance, with maintenance of our fuel systems and cells, that's been a real problem. We've got a great partnership with JRM right now, and they're doing all they can to support us, especially with some of our new fuels infrastructure. We've got some really good things ongoing. We just got about $70 million worth of contracts across 13 things that are revamping our fuel capability and capacity, and 13 projects across the wing to support that. But you know, long answer, but you know, to really the heart of your question, those same operating with the tyranny of distance in an area where, you know, corrosion is such a big issue, really causes a lot of logistics concerns out here. And we really are looking forward to creating through rewriting of the joint memorandum of agreement to the ability to gain our own operational fiscal flexibility and operational control over our logistics.
Great, thanks, sir. And next up, Sangman Lee, please identify yourself, and you're up. And then we'd like to go and talk after that, sir. We've had a question about National Guard, Air National Guard involvement or participation, presence at Andersen Air Force Base. So Mr. Lee first, and then if you would, sir, talk about the Guard. Mr. Lee, Sangman Lee. Okay, how about Charles DeLapp? DeLapp. Okay, I'll go ahead and ask a question, sir. Could you talk just a little bit about the importance of Air National Guard rotations and support across, not just on Andersen Air Force Base, but across the region?
Yes, sir. Air National Guard, obviously, like anywhere across, our total force, provides amazing support. I'll start off with what they provide here on island. So we've got an Air National Guard, we got an Army Guard, and our Air National Guard has a 254th Red Horse unit out here that supports us daily. They're 400 or 500 strong, and they'll provide anything from Red Horse support to security force augmentation, for our THAAD. So we rely on them at all times. They're heavily tasked, especially during times of COVID. So any support that we get from them is very much appreciated. And Frenchie Fallot and his team have been just absolutely tremendous partners, as have General Agigi's folks across the whole Guard here at Guam. But probably as significantly as that, the bulk of our tanker task force that provides not just supports to the exercise, the missions flown out of here at Guam, but really tanker support across the theater is enabled through the Air National Guard and units, KC-135 units that spend 2 months at a time out here rotationally and support that mission. And it's tough for them, especially, when you think about the jobs that they're coming from, and then having to find ways to get into some sort of a quarantine bubble prior to coming over here in order to be able to operate in this environment with the politics that we have here locally on the island of Guam, and being ready to fly and effectively execute missions on day one. But they bring continue to bring a tremendous amount of diversity and flexibility to our mission set here. But that's just one of the ways in which the Guard continues to support global operations and our operations specifically out here at Andersen.
Well, great. We'll try again. Frank Wolf, you're out there. It looks like you're unmuted. Can you hear us, Frank? And can you come up and ask a question? Please identify yourself.
Yeah, hi, General Frank Wolf at Defense Daily. Yeah, I was just curious in terms of your call sign, how you got your call sign. I know it's a story. I mean, I think I don't want to speculate, but I think I might know. But anyway, and also you mentioned a little bit in terms of the bomber task force and at Guam, obviously, and I wanted to. You spoke about the tyranny of distance, so I was kind of wondering, in terms of bomber capabilities, B-52, et cetera. What are you in terms of looking forward to, or sort of in terms of any kind of obviously new electronics, et cetera, for B-52s, et cetera, that would help you in these kind of situations, though.
Okay, hey Frank, thanks for the question. I'll start off with the easy one, the softball, especially since General Boera is up on the line. He's actually the one that named me. So a lot of folks, especially in the old days, and I'm starting to get pretty old, recognize Kid as an old sports call sign. I come from Seattle, where Ken Griffey Jr., nicknamed the Kid, was hitting home runs. and during some softball, I hit a couple out, and General Boera saved me from some other call signs that I could have had that would have been less fun to have gone through a career with. And he named me a kid back in probably 1997, 1998 or so. And
That's
it
a
just
good
got
one.
done. With regards to the BTF, you realize that I don't control necessarily the things that the bomber community is putting on their aircraft. But one of the things that I really am excited about being in this job out here, and realize we have a bomber presence capability here on Guam, but also a dead out at Diego Garcia under our control as well, providing that type of presence and sovereign options across the theater and into other theaters. And one of the things that I'm really excited about here is actually the fact that we don't own iron. And maybe General Boera, felt this a little bit as well. But when you think about those folks that are leading your organization, specifically within our operations group, one of the things that I learned, really thought about at Air War College is if you really want to be good at something, spend time at something. And when dissecting the problem set out here and how we're going to use bombers to achieve, and bomber presence to achieve our bomber task force to achieve our objectives within the region, that's a little bit harder to do when you're really good minds, you're really good thinkers, you're spending a significant chunk of their time staying current in the aircraft, or worried about the flying hour programs, the maintenance, the scheduling, the availability, and all those things that come with running and supporting and flying iron and keeping all of your pilots up to speed. And although our OG and our leadership team, still get to do that. They get to do it periodically. They get to do it across a bunch of different platforms and see how better to integrate those platforms and what we can do, and what we should be doing as they look at the way that the theater is shaping out and the way that the threats are messaging us, and look at innovative ways and places that we could, better message and better strategically project power. And I think that is a unique opportunity, and I would throw that out to anybody thinking about sending talent out this way. I think it's really good use of talent, especially folks with big planning and strategy backgrounds on where and how they're going to use it, because I think the concepts we develop out here at the forward edge are going to be important to the planners back at PACOM and the headquarters Air Force and the STRATCOM. Over.
That's great, kid. It's enthralling listening to you and getting such in-depth look at how you look at a very dangerous part of the world. Have you got about 5 or 10 more minutes, and then we'll shift to the small group? How are you doing on time?
I'm good, sir.
Okay, great. We've got a great question from Peter Robinson. Peter, if you'd come up on the net and just identify yourself, and then a couple more questions we can cover. Thanks.
Okay, first I want to say hello to Orville. It's been a long time since I saw you at Maxwell. I was War College Commandant back in mid-90s, and was 36 TAC Fighter Wing Commander at Bitburg 3.5 decades ago. So it's fascinating to hear how the 36th Wing is doing right now. But my question has to do with working with other air forces. Of course, when we were in Europe, we worked a lot with other air forces, and we had training. And in the Pacific, you've got huge opportunities to help increase the professionalism, but also provide an interface with our personnel to work with other air forces and let them know that those people come from different perspectives than we do. So what countries do you have a chance to work with, and how do you integrate them, and what are some of the challenges?
Hey, sir, great question. And one, I appreciate that coming from your background. We have a lot in common, obviously. So the 36th Wing out there in Bitburg, I started out flying out at Spangdahlem, and then now transitioned out here to the 36th Wing as its out here at Anderson, and then both of our Air War College time. I appreciate that question. There are our partnerships are pivotal, and who we partner with and how we fly with them, just like it's pivotal for us to be able to develop partnerships with folks to open up airfields, how and who we operate effectively with are really going to unlock the keys, are going to hold the keys to success for us in the region. And again, with the size of the theater, it'll only be enabled through our partnerships. Probably, one of the really big relationships we have is with Japan and with the JASDIF. The country of Japan, very interested in bringing the noise level down in some of their bases, and they're very interested in partnering with us. So much so that they provide us money to bring units out here to train, so that they get their training out here, but then get to be stationed back in Japan. That provides us a lot of interoperability with U.S. Air Forces operating out of Japan, but also the connections to Japanese Air Forces. The partnerships that we have with the JASDIF and the Royal Australian Air Force are highlighted in Cope North. We're getting ready to do that out here, and we've got 96 aircraft supporting Cope North over the next 2 to 3 weeks, where we're really going to be conducting fighter ops, tanker ops, ISR, and a bunch of other mobility ops, and providing them a bunch of lessons learned that we're seeing operating this theater, and getting some from them as well. It's such a robust relationship, especially with the JASDIF, that as they're worried about coming out of COVID. We were actually the first deployment that they had off of island. It was actually just to fly one C-130 out here as part of Operation Christmas Drop. But that then provided them the opportunity to bring their Navy out here in flying operations, support Sea Dragon over this past month. And then with immense pressure coming to across the JASDAF from Tokyo, their ability to deploy as many folks as they are, close to 300 folks out here for Cope North. Again, we're going to rely heavily on them, as we are across the Australian Air Force. You're familiar with our relationship with the Australian Air Force, and the fact that they were one of the first to partner with F-35s. They've got advanced capabilities with some of their airborne command and control systems, and we're continuing to partner in small and large ways with them across multiple exercises in the region, and they're one of the partners that a lot of other smaller nations in ASEAN, specifically, like to partner with as well. But the thing, sir, I think I'd really like to highlight is things that go on in other areas back in the States that really start from the headquarters on down, that develop those relationships, like our partnerships with Taiwan or our partnerships with specifically Singapore, and in a training environment. They pay big dividends to our ability to conduct operations out here. The Singapore is definitely interested in not just being able to partner with us and come out here and fly and be able to use our range in airspaces, but they're also looking at bringing in combat capability and training out here on a permanent basis. And we're well down the road following Department of State efforts to formalize bringing them out here into theater. So we're excited about those relationships, and those are some of the key air forces that we're partnering with.
General Robinson, thank you so much. It's great to hear from you. I'm smiling, one former Air War College commandant talking to another one. It's great to hear from you, sir. And oh, by the way, thanks for letting me graduate from the Air War College in about 1992. It's great to hear from you, sir.
Hey,
so how about
sir, they let me graduate. They'll let anybody graduate, right?
Sir. Hey, Kip, if we could wrap up here in the next few minutes before we go to our smaller group. It seems to me that while, you read an assessment about how Guam certainly is at risk, you're staring the threat in the eye. But when I listen to you talk, you're operating really and building operational capabilities across potentially hundreds of runways, such that you're looking the threat in the eye every day with incredible counteroffensive capability. And while it originates in Guam, every day you're really building operational capability across, what would you say, 100 runways. So as we finish up here, could you summarize just in how you're looking at the world? Sometimes I think analysts and those less educated just look at Guam as some sort of a very threatened center of gravity, when in fact, the center of gravity that you're building every day is across relationships we have with multiple countries, allies, and air forces, and certainly with a joint warfighting capability that is, in fact, combined with other countries. So I don't know if that, frames sort of a, executive summary and a wind up here, but boy, are you doing great work, and not just looking the bad guys in the eye, but bringing incredible lethal capability on demand.
Well, yeah, thank you, sir. And I think I'll tackle that that question by really starting with that threat here to Guam first. As we were conducting Valiant Shield, one of the things that was released the September timeframe is a Chinese propaganda video that showed some of its bomber capability, dropping bombs and creating havoc. And as you look at the target that was presented during that video, it's Andersen Air Force Base. So I think from that standpoint, we look and back to my original point, we look at ourselves sitting out here and providing potentially an immense opportunity for U.S. and partner operations. We also sit out here as a tremendous target. So as we look across what we're going to be able to do, we have to spread across the regions to all those different areas that you talk about. And what works for us today may not work for us tomorrow. What's targeted today may not be targeted tomorrow. And so we continue to really rely on our ability to coordinate and partner from PACAF and PACOM as a whole across various aspects of the region. And obviously, we're not the only ones doing this. There are other bases taking the lead in their areas, Kadena, being one of those as well. But when you think about and you study a lot of what is happening in the region and some of the influence of actors like China and how they're taking their One Belt, One Road initiative and bringing that out, not just in the mainland, but across the theater and in the Pacific, what may be described as a very slight relationship may prove to be something that limits our ability or our access in the region. So we've got to be very forward and proactive about going out and engaging. Not just using our CRG to go out and unlock airfields, but using a lot of our different tool sets out here to be able to have real meaningful relationships with otherwise small communities that allow access at some point of our choosing down the road to be able to support the types of operations we may need in the future. And that may be something as easy as supporting COVID vaccinations to providing humanitarian assistance or disaster relief in an area that really doesn't get a lot of news or a lot of press. But again, when you talk about this being a main operating base, this is an island of about 170,000 people. Everything that we're talking about gets smaller and smaller from there. So there's a lot of really austere locations that we've got to keep up relationships with all across the theater.
That's great, sir. Well, thank you so much again. Thanks for your leadership and that of your team, officers, obviously enlisted civilians, all working for our Department of the Air Force, working with your joint partners. Thanks to your sailor counterparts, your Navy counterparts out there for all they do too. And obviously there's always Marines and soldiers. And probably sooner or later, if not today, Guardians there at Andersen Air Force Base. So again, thank you to all. We can't do enough for you. For all of you on the net, some 200 plus a day, thanks for your support for your Air Force Association. We would support our airmen and our Guardians. This is one team and one fight. And again, we can't thank every member of the Air Force Association, our sponsors, and again, all of you who were with us today. I would remind everyone that registration is open for our virtual Aerospace Warfare Symposium, 24-26 February. Signups are going quick. And we really appreciate the opportunity to host all of you with content like we've seen today. Just really helpful, meaningful content for all of us to give us improved capability to help to defend America. So again, we'll go off the air for a few minutes and come back with our small group. Thanks so much, kid. Great work, and thanks again for your leadership.
Sir, thank you.